Hey, what's up Rivian community? This is Eric from EV Sportline. Today we're going to be installing R1S slider. So this product has evolved over the last year, and that is due to the evolution of the Rivian chassis. So this product evolves just as dynamically as the Rivian itself, and we're excited to bring you the latest Gen 2 rock slider. So here we have the step plate, we have the slider frame, and we have the Under Armour skid plate all laid out side by side. And I was gonna do a brief product overview to show you some of the changes that have taken place in the last year. First off, the slider frame now uses all factory hardware to install to the vehicle. And the skid plate is actually a fully floating skid plate, meaning the skid plate does not actually touch or connect to the chassis of the vehicle. It actually bolts directly to the frame, and it basically floats barely off of the bottom of the truck. So there's no interference of the skid plate to the vehicle. Tread plate is our tried and true tread plate. That is essentially the same as the running board. But that's a quick overview of the Gen 2 slider. All right, so we're here showing the tools that will be required. With the hardware kit, you'll get a TP55, which is a Torx Plus 55 bit. It is not the same as a Torx bit. The edges are squared off, and you will damage the hardware if you try to use a Torx bit on the Torx Plus bolt. So that's very important. So Torx Plus 55, and then a standard Torx 20. That'll come with your hardware kit. Some additional tools that you will need. I like to use a big flat screwdriver to help pry the clips loose from the plastic Aero panels of the Rivian. You'll also need a 10mm open end wrench or ratcheting wrench, 4mm Allen, an assortment of ratchet wrenches, a 17, a 15, and for R1T you will also need a 13mm wrench. And then I've got a torque wrench and a longer wrench here. If you don't have a high torque impact gun, you will definitely need something to give you a little bit more leverage to get the body bolts loose. But if you've got a nice high torque impact gun, you won't need that. So let's get started. All right, so I've got the instructions pulled up on my phone, and this is useful to use. You don't have to print out the instructions, just use it on your phone or iPad or whatever. So we're all the way down at step 1D. We've got the vehicle in off-road mode. We've got all the parts laid out. We've verified our hardware is all here. We've got our tools, and we're ready to install the tread plate onto the frame. So again, step 1D. All right, so step 1D, we're gonna go ahead and take the tread plate, and I'm gonna sit it on top of the frame. I'm gonna start with one end, and I'm just gonna drop the bolt and the washer through each hole, and I'll just work myself through all the way down to the end. And then once I get all these in, I'll tilt it up and I'll start to tighten the serrated nuts on the back side. All right, so I've got the screws through with the washers, and I'll just tilt this up now, and I'll start to get the serrated nuts started on the back side. You can do this, just get them hand tight first, and then we can snug them down. All right, so I've got all the screws through with the washers. I've got the serrated nuts hand tightened on the back, and now I'll just start to snug these up, and we'll continue on. So M4 on the top, and then 10 mil on the bottom. So one note for the tread plate hardware, the nut on the bottom is actually a serrated nut, so there's no need to crank these down super tight. I think the instructions spec it out at a 5 foot-pound, which is pretty light. So just hand tools are sufficient for this. Just nice and snug. Don't over tighten those because again, it's just not necessary. All right, we're at step 2, we're underneath the truck. A little pro tip for you. Go ahead and wipe these down real quick, or, you know, wash the whole truck before you pull it into the garage, and at least get these bottom panels cleaned off before you are underneath, you know, getting rained with dirt and rocks and stuff. So give that a quick wipe down, and then we'll continue on. So you're gonna have 2 10mm hex head bolts here. Then you'll have 2 T20 screws in the front of this panel. So with those out, this panel will kind of pull it out towards the outer edge of the truck, and the 2-3 tabs will pop out of the skid plates, and then you can use your long screwdriver to get in here and release the clips. So there's three clips total, and then that panel comes down nice and easy. All right, so here we are at the back panel. Again, this is a R1S, so this back panel is much shorter, much smaller, but it only has one 10mm hex head. So that comes out, it unclips, or kind of unhooks from those back 2 tabs, and then it has one clip here, pops out like so. All right, so middle panel comes off very much the same. Pull it down from the center along the battery tray, and then just start at one end and work your way down, releasing each clip as you go. All right, so if you're following along the instructions, we're at step 3. We have all these bolts exposed, and it can be a little overwhelming, but just, you know, take your time as you go through this, and the instructions have laid everything out pretty clearly. But yeah, again, take your time, just don't get in a rush, and you'll be fine. So these outer bolts here are the TP55 body bolts, okay? In the instructions, I call these red line. So I'm trying to help everyone, you know, distinguish all the bolts that are visible. So to keep it clear, we focus on these red line TP55s, and then we do the yellow line, which are these 17mm hex head bolts. So yellow line and red line. That's what we're gonna be focused on right now. So I've got my TP55 bit, which fits in a 7/16 socket, and I've got it on a long 1/2-inch ratcheting bar, and these loosen up fairly easily. So take your time, don't get in a rush. Make sure that you keep this bit nice and square in the head of the bolt to prevent any stripping. So for R1S, we're gonna remove red positions 3, 4, 6, and 7. 5 will be loosened but not come out completely. So again, R1S, 3, 4, 6, and 7. R1T, you're gonna remove 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So that's a little bit of difference there between the chassis. All right, guys, so for next step, we're gonna remove these thin sheet metal triangular plates. So these are gonna be at bolt 4 and 6 on the red line. And then on your yellow line, it'll be 4, 5, 8, and 9. So those are the 17. Those come out nice and quick. And these plates come off, they will not be reused. And then we're going to put our bolts back in, make sure those are in a couple revolutions. And these will be used to hang the slider on later when we're there. All right, next step is we're just gonna loosen number 5 red. Again, it's not gonna come out completely because we're gonna use it to hang the slider frame from. So we're gonna back it out. So back it out and then a couple rotations back in, and frame will hang from that as it is installed. All right, our next step is we've got to loosen this 15 mil hex head bolt, and this is the last bolt that will be used to hang the slider from when it's installed. So again, it is inboard from number 2 red. That's its position. So 1, 2 red, and then inboard from it. Again, it's loosened, doesn't come out, just loosened, and it'll hang there, okay? All right, so I've got my slider sitting here ready to go up into place. You want to basically align there's a T-slot here of the frame, and that's gonna be aligned with this number 5 body bolt. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've got 6 points that it's gonna hang from, and we can lift it up into place. All right, so at this point, the slider frame is simply hanging on the 6 bolts. So be careful not to, move it around too much, but what we wanna do is quickly, go ahead and get, one body bolt in, and at that point, this thing isn't going anywhere, okay? And we can go ahead down the line, and we can put our body bolts back in, just very loosened. All right, we're working on down the line, just getting these TP55 body bolts threaded up into the chassis, and that way the slider is not gonna fall. So we've got our body bolts in, and we can start to tighten up the 17s and the rest and get everything torqued down. All right, we've got the body bolts in. We're gonna next go ahead and tighten the 17s down. So I'm gonna zip those snug, and then I will torque them with a torque wrench. All right, I'm torquing these 4 17 mils down to 45 foot-pounds. All right, next we're at the frontmost bolt, which was a 15 hex head. So get it tightened up, and we're gonna snug it up to 25 foot-pounds. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and snug up all of the body bolts, and then we'll torque those down to 80 foot-pounds. All right, we're gonna go ahead and torque these down to 80 foot-pounds. All right, so we're gonna go back and just recheck all the bolt torques. Always a nice idea when you got a product like this with a lot of connection points to go back, double check, make sure everything is still snugged up. All right, y'all, we're at step 14, and this is a very important step. It's good for you to just take your time here because you can install these nut clips incorrectly, and that's gonna affect the way the skid plate mounts. So the orientation that these M8 nut clips install is the barrel is going to be on the top side of the tab that it goes on. So if you're looking at this from the side view, the button head bolt and the washer go into it like that from the bottom, and that's how it's supposed to be oriented. So, you know, you could incorrectly install it like this, and then you'd have trouble getting this fastener to thread in, and then the skid plate would be actually sitting off of where it's supposed to be by about 1/4 of an inch. So install the nut clips with the barrel on top. All right, so we're at step 15 now. Slider frame is installed, fully torqued up. We've got the M8 nut clips installed, and we're ready to lift up the Under Armour plate into position. So my friends are busy. I've grabbed my floor jack, thrown on an old piece of carpet to, give the plate some padding so it doesn't get all scratched up. And I've got it aligned where all the holes of the skid plate are, roughly aligned to the nut clips. I'm just gonna roll this up under, and I'm gonna just lift it up in approximately where it needs to go. And then I can get these button head bolts threaded in by hand. All right, I've got the plate up in position. It's a good idea. Let's put a little drop of blue Loctite on each bolt, and that way any vibrations will not have any effect on these things coming loose. So just gonna start kind of in the middle here. You may have to shift this plate around a little bit as you get each one to line up. So once you get 1 or 2 in, it's not going to go anywhere. Then you can move to the ends. All right, for these bolts on the bottom, I would recommend just using, hand wrenches on this stuff. Never a good idea to try to use a impact gun with an Allen head. So just take your time, torque these up to 15 foot-pounds, and you'll be all set. All right, everybody. One last thing, I was gonna show you, we've incorporated a factory jack point into the front and rear of the slider. So you can take any standard Rivian jack puck and it fits into that hole, just like an OEM jack point. And the benefit is you're actually getting a much stronger connection point compared to the factory jack point, which if you've done any, investigating and looking around, those factory jack points are very thin sheet metal and they can bend and twist and do all sorts of weird things. So you've got a much stronger attachment point than the factory, and any standard jack puck or your 1EV magnetic pucks go in there perfectly for lifting. All right, so another great benefit of this RMaxx slider kit is that you can essentially use anywhere along this outer edge to lift the vehicle from. You could theoretically use a jack and a little pad, and you can lift this whole truck up by lifting along this outer edge, and you're completely fine. So another benefit of the EV Sportline rock slider. All right, so that does it for the R1S slider install. The passenger side is exactly the same, so you just repeat everything we did for the driver's side, and you're good to go, ready to hit some trails and see what this Rivian is capable of. Thanks for tuning in. Feel free to leave us a comment if you have a question, or you can hit us up on evsportline.com. Give us a call. We're actually here in the US, so hey, somebody answers the phone when you call. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.